Imagine being a CEO of a thriving company, always focused on growing the business and taking care of your employees. But what happens when you witness something unexpected that changes the way you view your team? One night, a hardworking employee who had been pulling double shifts to meet deadlines sent a simple message asking for food. What started as a small routine request turned into an eye-opening moment that no one could have predicted. Curious and concerned, the CEO decided to follow this employee after work hours to see what was going on. What he discovered when he showed up at her door left him stunned. It wasn't just about a meal. It was about something deeper, something that changed the way he saw his business and his people. As the door opened, the CEO's mind raced with questions. Was there more to her situation than just exhaustion? Was she struggling in ways no one knew? The answers lay just beyond that doorstep. And what he learned that night would impact not only his relationship with her, but the entire company. But what exactly did he see when the door opened? Stay tuned to find out how this simple act of kindness turned into a revelation that would forever change the way one CEO led his team. For weeks, the CEO had noticed Sarah, one of his most diligent employees, working late into the night. She had a reputation for her commitment and hard work, often volunteering for extra shifts, always going above and beyond. But lately, something seemed off. She wasn't her usual bubbly self. She looked tired, her smile a little forced, her energy drained. But every time he asked, she'd shrug it off, saying everything was fine. It wasn't unusual for employees to go the extra mile during busy times, but Sarah's situation felt different. There was a quiet desperation in the way she pushed through every shift, like she was running on fumes. The CEO noticed that despite the late hours, she never asked for much. She didn't demand extra perks, she didn't complain about the workload, and when others left for the day, Sarah would always stay behind, long after everyone else had gone home. The simple request for food that night caught him off guard. It wasn't like Sarah to ask for anything, especially something as basic as a meal. He found himself wondering what was going on behind the scenes of this hardworking employee's life. Was there something more? So, against his usual instincts, he followed her, hoping to get answers, but also feeling a bit of guilt for not noticing sooner. He hadn't realized how deeply Sarah's personal life could be affecting her at work. When he arrived at her home, he hesitated before knocking, knowing that what lay beyond that door would change everything. The CEO stood there, staring at the front door, trying to calm his nerves. He hadn't planned to confront her like this, but curiosity was eating away at him. Why was she so determined to keep pushing herself, even to the point of exhaustion? He had seen employees go through tough times, but Sarah's situation felt different. It felt personal. He could hear faint noises from inside, the soft hum of a TV, and the sound of what seemed like children playing. His heart tightened as he realized something. Sarah didn't live alone. She had a family. In all the months he'd worked with her, he'd never asked about her personal life. She was always so focused, so professional, that he hadn't even considered the possibility that her struggles might be tied to her home life. The door creaked open, and Sarah's tired eyes met his. There was a brief moment of surprise, followed by an awkward silence. She wasn't expecting anyone, especially not her boss. He could see the shock in her expression, but also something else. Resignation, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, glancing over her shoulder as if to make sure no one heard him. "I didn't expect you to show up here." The CEO stepped inside, his gaze quickly scanning the modest apartment. It was a far cry from the polished corporate offices they were used to. He noticed the piles of laundry stacked in the corner and the worn furniture. It wasn't the home of someone who had everything figured out. As he looked around, Sarah's two young children appeared from the next room, their faces lighting up when they saw him. "Mom, is he here for work?" the youngest asked innocently. It hit him harder than he expected. Sarah was juggling more than just late shifts. She was a single mother, trying to keep everything together on her own. She quickly ushered the kids back into their room, and when she returned, her face had softened. It's been hard," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to seem like I couldn't handle things." The CEO didn't know what to say. Here she was, one of his top employees, but the reality of her personal life was far more complicated than he could have imagined. The late shifts, the exhaustion, it wasn't just work taking a toll on her. She was struggling to balance everything, and he had been completely blind to it. But before he could ask more, Sarah's voice cracked, a small tear escaping down her cheek. "I didn't want to ask for help. I thought if I just kept working harder, everything would get better." There it was, the breaking point. The reason behind the double shifts, the constant pressure, the exhaustion. Sarah wasn't just trying to keep up at work. She was trying to survive. And now, with the CEO standing in her living room, everything that had been hidden for so long was spilling out. He felt a deep unease settle in his chest. What did he do now? How could he possibly help without making things worse? And what about the company? Would he have to make tough decisions that could change everything for her and for the business? The silence in the room hung heavy, broken only by the soft breathing of Sarah and the distant sounds of her children. The CEO, now more unsure than ever, could feel his pulse quickening. The weight of the situation was more than just about Sarah's double shifts. It was about her entire life, unraveling right in front of him. He had no idea how deep her struggles went, and now, standing in her home, it was impossible to ignore the pain that had been quietly building over time. Sarah wiped her eyes quickly, attempting to regain composure, but the crack in her voice betrayed her. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I just can't keep up with everything." Her hands trembled as she reached for the coffee table, her attempt to hold it all together slipping through her fingers. The CEO swallowed hard. He had been so focused on the business, on the company's success, that he had never seen the strain it was putting on his employees, especially Sarah, who had always been so dependable. In that moment, he realized the magnitude of what was at stake, not just her job, but her entire sense of security. "Sarah," he began, his voice low but firm, "you don't have to do this alone. You've been carrying all this for so long, and no one even knew." He didn't know where the words came from, but they felt right. The problem wasn't just that she needed more hours at work. It was that she needed support understanding. But before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the other room, followed by the sound of a child crying. Sarah's face went pale, and she immediately rushed toward the noise. The CEO hesitated for only a second before following her, his heart racing. When he entered the room, he saw Sarah's youngest, her little girl, clutching her arm in pain. The child had knocked over a stack of books while trying to reach something on the shelf. Sarah knelt down, trying to calm her, but the frustration on her face was clear. The pressure was too much. The CEO could see it now. This wasn't just about a work-life balance issue. This was about survival, and it was unraveling fast. As Sarah comforted her daughter, the CEO stood frozen in the doorway, a sense of helplessness washing over him. What had he walked into? What was the right thing to do? Should he offer a solution? Should he give her time off? But what if that wasn't enough? His mind raced, unable to find a clear path. Then as Sarah turned to him, her eyes were filled with a quiet desperation. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending I've got it all together, she said, her voice barely audible. The CEO's chest tightened. He had to do something, but what? As the seconds ticked by, he realized the stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined, not just for Sarah, but for the company as a whole. What kind of leader would he be if he didn't step in now? What would he do to fix this before it was too late? As Sarah held her daughter in her arms, the CEO took a step forward, his mind racing, trying to figure out the next move. But before he could say anything, a loud knock on the door startled both of them. Sarah stiffened, her eyes flashing with panic. She looked at the CEO for a split second, as if silently asking him to leave, but the urgency in the air held him in place. Another knock, this time more forceful, followed by a voice, harsh and impatient. "Sarah, open up. We need to talk." The CEO's heart skipped a beat. Who was this? Why did Sarah seem so tense? Without another word, Sarah stood up quickly, wiping her face, trying to compose herself. The CEO could see the weight of whatever was about to happen next written all over her. He could feel the air shift, the tension thickening in the room. "I'm sorry," she whispered, before making her way to the door. The CEO instinctively followed, his curiosity getting the better of him. As Sarah opened the door, he could see a tall man standing in the hallway, his arms crossed and a look of annoyance on his face. "Sarah, what the hell?" "I've been calling you all day," the man snapped, his gaze shifting to the CEO. The recognition in his eyes was immediate. The CEO's heart sank as he realized who this was, Mark, Sarah's ex-husband. "You really think you can just keep dodging responsibility?" Mark continued, his tone harsh, but Sarah's face went pale. She took a step back, almost as if bracing herself for a confrontation she hadn't expected. The CEO stood frozen, his mind now flooded with questions. Mark's presence changed everything. This wasn't just about Sarah's work-life balance anymore. It was about her personal life, her history, her struggles with someone who was clearly still in her life in a way that was adding even more pressure. Mark's eyes narrowed as he glanced at the CEO. "I don't know why you're here, but maybe you should mind your own business." His words felt like a slap, but it was Sarah who seemed most affected. The CEO could see the discomfort in her body language, how she pulled back slightly, as if she was bracing for an argument. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. "Hi," Sarah began, but Mark cut her off. "You think just because you're working all these shifts, it's going to make up for the fact that you've left me to deal with everything. The kids, bills, the house. You can't keep running from your responsibilities, Sarah." Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment, and the CEO felt a pang of anger for her. He could see now that her exhaustion wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. She wasn't just being crushed by the demands of her job. She was being pulled in every direction by the baggage of her past. "I'm doing the best I can," Sarah said, her voice trembling. Mark scoffed, the tension rising with every word. "Well, that's not good enough, is it? You've been disappearing for weeks now. You think you can just work your way out of this? You can't even take care of your own kids, Sarah." The words hit like a blow. Sarah flinched, her eyes tearing up again. The CEO stood there, unsure what to do. He felt an overwhelming need to step in, to say something, but he knew it wasn't his place. His chest tightened as he watched Sarah's face crumble. This wasn't just a corporate issue. It was a personal, family issue, one that ran deeper than anything he could have imagined. And now, with Mark in the picture, everything was spinning out of control. As Mark turned to leave, muttering something about needing to figure things out, Sarah shut the door softly behind him. The room was thick with silence. Sarah collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. The CEO stood there, at a loss for words. He had come here thinking he would help, but now he felt more helpless than ever. The situation was spiraling, and he wasn't sure if he could do anything to stop it. But as the minutes passed, he realized one thing. If he didn't act now, if he didn't make a decision about how to move forward, Sarah might lose everything. Her job, her family, her dignity. And he wasn't sure how much longer she could take it. The room was still. Sarah sat on the couch, her hands clenched tightly in her lap, her breath shaky. The CEO felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness. He wanted to help her, but everything seemed so tangled. Her personal life, her struggles with Mark, the weight of her job, it all blended into one giant knot that he didn't know how to untangle. He took a cautious step toward her, unsure if any words could make a difference. But then something inside him snapped. He couldn't stand seeing her like this, so broken, so lost. "Sarah," he said quietly, sitting down beside her, "you don't have to carry this alone. I can help. We can help. But you have to let us." His voice was firm, but there was an undeniable softness in it, a plea more than a command. She looked at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You don't understand," she whispered. "No one does. I've been stuck in this cycle for so long. I'm failing no matter what I do." The CEO's heart ached as he reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not failing, Sarah. You're just overwhelmed. You need a break, a real one, and I can help make that happen." She hesitated, a long pause hanging in the air. Then, almost as if a weight had been lifted, she nodded. I'm so tired, but I don't know how to stop, how to ask for help."